Hello, and thank you for joining me today as part of OSBA's Get On Board campaign. My name is Sara Clark, and I serve as the Chief Legal Counsel for the Ohio School Boards Association. These short videos were designed to provide information about the legal aspects of running for school board. This specific video is designed to focus on the first steps you'll need to take to hit the ground running as a candidate and includes information on filing your nominating petition, setting up and registering your campaign committee, and setting up your bank account. We also have included other videos that talk about campaign contributions, campaign expenditures and disclaimers, and campaign reporting requirements. Please check out OSBA's Get On Board website for links to these videos. Okay, let's get started. We are going to start with how you must start. So each candidate must file a form with the County Boards of Elections that serves as a declaration of candidacy. This is commonly referred to as a nominating petition and can be picked up or downloaded from the Ohio Secretary of State's website. On the website, you'll see a number of different nominating petitions that vary based off the type of school district position that you'll be running for. So for example, the nominating petition for a city, local, or exempted village school district is 3T, whereas the nominating petition for an educational service center is 3W. So make sure that you poll and use the correct nominating position for the office that you seek. These petitions may not be filed electronically, so they need to be filed in person with the County Board of Elections. If your school district is in more than one county, you must file your petition in the most populous county of the school district. So if you're running for a seat on the ESC and the ESC is in more than one county, the petition is filed with the Board of Elections in the county in which the ESC's central administrative offices are located. If you have questions about where your County Board of Elections is located, I have provided a link on this slide to a directory where you can look up where your County Board of Elections is based off of your address. Nominating petitions are required to be filed no later than 4 p.m. on the 90th day before the general election. And this year, the 90th day before the general election is August 9th of 2023. And a $30 filing fee is required to accompany the submission of your nomination petition. And the screenshots on the screen here are actually from the nominating petition itself. So I'm going to fill out or walk you through how you would fill out that nominating petition. So the first part of your nominating petition is your statement of candidacy. This section is required to be completely filled out and signed in ink by the candidate before being circulated. Your petition will actually be ruled invalid if it's dated after your petition is circulated. This statement of candidacy section includes information about your address and certifies that you are a qualified elector. In order to be a qualified elector, you have to be a U.S. citizen who is at least 18 years old. You also have to have been a resident of the district and registered to vote in the district for at least 30 days prior to the election. The statement of candidacy is also where you indicate your desire to be a candidate for the Board of Education. You will be asked on this form to designate whether you're seeking a full term or whether you're seeking to fulfill the unexpired term of a recently vacated position on the board. So make sure you check the correct box. The next section of the nominating petition allows you to designate a committee to represent you and essentially replace your name on the ballot with another individual's name if you withdraw, are disqualified, or you happen to die before the 10th day before the general election. This is a weird provision of the law that was set up to ensure that the electorate has the opportunity to make a choice between candidates, regardless of what occurs to the candidates prior to the election. And so essentially what happens is that if this section is filled out, your committee would convene after you withdraw or disqualified or pass away, and they would designate a new person whose name would appear on the ballot in lieu of you. And assuming that person is interested, that designation is sent to the Board of Elections, who would then replace your name with the new candidate's name on the ballot. You are not required to appoint a committee. And even if you do appoint a committee, the committee doesn't have to have exactly 5 people on it, which is the number of spaces here. Additionally, even if you do appoint a committee, that committee doesn't actually have to even name a replacement in the event that one of those conditions occurs. So really, it's up to you whether you fill this section out. You can leave it blank on your petition. This section of the form is the section that precedes the signatures of those individuals who nominate you as a candidate for the Board of Education. Again, the individuals who are signing your petition are also required to be qualified electors. That means that they must be U.S. citizens who are at least 18 and must have been residents of the district for at least 30 days prior to the election and must be registered to vote in the district for at least 30 days prior to the election. Those individuals who sign your petition are basically stating their belief that you are well qualified to perform the duties of the position. Okay, let's talk about signatures, which is the next section on the petition. Each petition is required to contain the signatures of electors of only one county. So if you have to run a multi-county election because the school district is in multiple counties, then separate petition papers have to be circulated and filed in each county. The signatures on this part of the petition are required to be in ink. You cannot sign your own petition as the candidate. If you have individuals who are helping you gather signatures, those individuals may not sign the petition paper that they are circulating, but it's okay for those individuals to sign a petition paper that is being circulated for you by someone else on your committee. The number of signatures that you need on your petition depends on the type of school district that or school district position that you're running for. So board member candidates for local and exempted village school districts need 25 valid signatures. Board member candidates for ESCs need 50 valid signatures. And the number of signatures that are needed for board member candidates for city school districts is dependent on the population of the district and runs anywhere from 25 signatures to 300 signatures. It is a good idea to get more than the minimum number of required signatures. The County Board of Elections regularly invalidates signatures on applications, so we recommend that you get more than that minimum number. However, the petition cannot contain more than 3 times the minimum number of required signatures. So make sure that you don't exceed that threshold or it will be invalidated. The final section of the form is what's called the circulator statement. This is the statement from the individual who actually circulated the petition, where they identify that they witnessed every signature, that they believe everyone was qualified to sign the petition, and that the signature of the person aligns with the person that they purported to be. The petition paper only can be circulated by one person. Again, it's okay for the candidate to be the person who's circulating his or her own petition, and circulators must be at least 18 years old. Now that the petition part is over, we're going to talk a little bit about how to set up your campaign committee. And the first thing to notice is that there are actually several different types of campaigns. The first one is what we call a filing fee only candidate. These are the individuals who know from the get-go that they will receive no contributions and make no expenditures for their campaign. It may be that they're running unopposed or they're otherwise a shoo-in for the position. So these individuals are only paying the $30 filing fee that is required to file that nomination petition. We call them filing fee only candidates. The second type is the campaign where the candidate is spending only his or her own funds. It is permissible for candidates to donate items or money to their own campaigns, but they should recognize that those are still considered contributions if there's no expectation of reimbursement from the campaign, or they're considered expenditures if you're expecting to be reimbursed. As the candidate, you'll still need to track and report those expenditures, even if they're all coming out of your own pocket. And Jenny Harden, in a later video, reviews the reporting requirements. So I would encourage you to check that out if you haven't yet watched that one. Local candidate waivers are actually going to be discussed on a separate slide here in a second, so I'm going to skip over that one for right now. Single beneficiary campaigns are probably the campaign structure you're most familiar with, where there's a single candidate who's soliciting contributions and expenditures from individuals. And then a multi-beneficiary campaign are a single campaign committee that represents multiple candidates. So for example, if you have 2 candidates that are running as a slate for 3 open board seats, you could both of those candidates could establish a multi-beneficiary campaign that would represent both candidates. So you basically set up one campaign committee and jointly file all of your required reports. There is a little bit more to that last type of campaign. And if that's something that you're interested in, I would encourage you to come to one of the candidate workshops or give us a call if you have questions about how to set that up or manage one of those multi-beneficiary campaigns. I mentioned the local candidate waiver. So this is only available for certain positions. And what it does is it exempts candidates from filing any campaign finance reports. So the reports, as I mentioned, that Jenny Harden is putting together a video on, this waiver basically exempts you from having to complete those reports or file those with any office. So the Board of Education, as I mentioned, is one of the positions that's specifically authorized to use a local candidate waiver. What you're doing is, by completing this waiver, is basically acknowledging that your campaign is not going to accept any more than $2,000 in contributions and won't make any expenditures that total more than $2,000. In order to qualify for the waiver, you must also ensure that no more than $100 is received from any individual. And that limitation, that $100 limitation, does not apply to contributions from the candidate. Now, even if you file the local candidate waiver, there is no penalty if the committee exceeds those limits. The committee is just then responsible for reporting all the contributions that the committee received and the expenditures that were made on the next required financial statement. If you're interested in completing this local candidate waiver, you'll want to complete Form 31BB on the Ohio Secretary of State's website. And there is a very specific time frame that this has to be filed, which is why we included on this initial webinar. It has to be filed. The waiver has to be filed no later than 10 days after you file your nominating petition. After those 10 days, you're no longer qualified to submit the waiver. So this is an option for a lot of individuals who run for positions on Board of Education seats, especially if you know you're not going to run a campaign that has either a lot of contributions or expenditures. All right, the next step is to establish your campaign committee. So candidates are required to establish campaign committees if they're going to receive contributions or make expenditures. Filing fee only candidates, again, because they will not be receiving contributions and they won't be making any expenditures other than that filing fee, those groups are not required, or those candidates are not required to create a campaign committee. If you're going to use your personal funds, you are still required to create a campaign committee. However, your campaign committee can just be you, the candidate. Those candidates who complete the local candidate waiver are not exempt from the requirement of setting up a campaign committee. You're still required to have one. Again, all that waiver does is exempt you from filing reports if you come under those threshold dollar amounts. And then the single beneficiary and multi-beneficiary campaigns are required to have a campaign committee. So committees are required to register their committees with the County Board of Elections. The way that you do that is by filing what's called the Designation of Treasurer form, which is Form 30D on the Ohio Secretary of State's forms website. You must complete this form and file it prior to receiving a contribution or making an expenditure. The use, again, of your personal funds to pay the filing fee does not require you to have to file this Designation of Treasurer form. This form also needs to be updated and amended as necessary. So for example, if you change your treasurer or you change your committee name or address, you will be required to update your form with the County Board of Elections. These next few slides actually show the form. If you are filing a new Designation of Treasurer form, you should select that this is a new filing and choose candidate as your committee type. If you are providing an update, as we talked about, either because your treasurer has changed or you're changing your committee name or your committee address, you would select update as your type of filing. On the form, you will be asked to provide the full name of the campaign committee. The campaign committee's name must include at least the last name of the candidate, and I would recommend that you make the name general rather than specific. So for example, you could call it Friends of Clark rather than Clark for School Board. This would allow you to use the same campaign committee for a new office as opposed to setting everything up again. So if you have aspirations to continue on your political journey, you could use that campaign for later campaigns in your life. This form also allows you to designate a campaign committee treasurer. The treasurer has to keep strict account of all contributions, from whom they were received, and the purposes for which they were dispersed. And it's, again, okay for the candidate to serve as the campaign committee's treasurer. This is just a reminder to not forget to sign the designation of treasurer form. There's a spot down at the bottom of this form that requires both the signature of the treasurer and the signature of the candidate. And those two individuals must sign the form every time it's filed or updated. The last thing that we will discuss is the requirement for candidates to set up bank accounts. Candidates must establish a bank account that is separate from their personal or business account. The only exception to this is that, again, candidates who will not accept any monetary contributions and will only use their personal funds, those individuals do not need to establish a separate bank account for their committees. All monetary campaign contributions that are received by the candidate or the candidate's campaign committee must be deposited into this account, and all expenses paid from this account must be disclosed. Some banks do require a federal identification number in order to set up the bank account, and that number will be issued by the IRS upon request. This slide is just a summary of the different types of campaigns, and again, whether a separate bank account is needed for those campaigns. So this is we've reached the end of this first webinar, again, first of many webinars in our Get On Board series. As I mentioned at the beginning, our division has also put together separate webinars that identify the legal parameters around campaign contributions and expenditures, as well as the reporting requirements that most campaign committees are required to comply with. I would encourage you to view those webinars as well. We also have a tremendous number of resources on our Get On Board Ohio website. I've provided the link on this slide. Your County Board of Elections and the Ohio Secretary of State's office also provide resources for candidates in a number of different areas. So if you haven't checked out those resources, I would encourage you to do that. And I would also encourage you to attend one of OSBA's upcoming regional candidate workshops. Those typically take place in the early fall, and a link to where you can find out more information about those workshops also appears on this slide. If you do have questions as a candidate, you are welcome to call OSBA's legal division. That number is 855-OSBA-LAW. And we are happy to provide assistance or point you to legal resources that may help specifically answer your questions or concerns. So I want to wish you all the best of luck with your campaigns. I look forward to working with you after the election. Thanks so much. Good luck.